The Ullanor Crusade. Let's take a trip back into the Ullanor Crusade now that we find ourselves on the brink of a new era of battle based on the recent Adepticon 2026. The Ullanor sector is notorious for being overrun by orcs, to the point where it was home to two massive empires. These greenskin forces stood against the assault of the Imperium during both the 30th and 32nd millennia, reminding us all that in the grim reality of this galaxy, there is only war. It was during the final days of the Great Crusade that the Emperor unleashed the full might of humanity on the planet Ullanor. With a staggering 100,000 space marines, 8 million soldiers, and 600 warships, they landed on a world already steeped in the chaos of war. Ullanor would eventually be known as Planet Armageddon. While the White Scars and Ultramarines pinned down the outer systems, the Luna Wolves drove straight for the heart of the Empire as Horus himself teleported into the Overlord's fortress palace with his elite guard, cutting through 40 of the largest orcs alive before throwing their leaders screaming. In just one afternoon, the greatest alien empire in history collapsed, leading the Emperor to declare this victory the absolute peak of his Great Crusade and the moment his vision for the galaxy finally seemed within reach. What followed was the triumph of Ullanor, where an entire continent was flattened into a parade ground 500 kilometers long and lined from end to end with orc skulls, while the greatest warriors humanity has ever produced stood at the Emperor's side. The Emperor then made two monumental announcements that would shape the next 10,000 years of history by naming Horus as War Master and revealing that he was returning to Terra to leave his sons to finish the crusade without him. While some of the Primarchs bowed their heads, others felt abandoned and betrayed. These became the seeds of the Horus heresy, and the greatest civil war in human history was actually born on this very ground where war never stops until today. The War of the Beast. 1,500 years after Horus threw that overlord from his tower, the largest orc invasion in history arrives. Led by 6 prime orcs of terrifying intelligence and physical scale, each commanding a greenskin legion in deliberate mockery of the Emperor and his Primarchs. The beast speaks flawless Gothic, converts his home planet into a weapon, and launches attack moons directly toward Terra, and the Imperium that survived the Horus heresy finds itself with no prepared answer for what is coming. The Imperial fists deploy to hold the advance and are burned to the last warrior, leaving Captain Corlin to become Lord Commander of the Imperium and the last surviving Imperial fist in existence. He tracks down the Primarch Vulcan on a volcanic world where the Salamander's father is holding back millions of orcs alone and pulls him back into a war that neither of them can see the end of. It is Chapter Master Thane who leads the final invasion, using Sisters of Silence and a captured orc psyker as a psychic detonator, tearing through the horde from the inside until the beast finally falls. The new Lord Commander orders Exterminatus on Ullanor to erase every trace of what happened here, and the Fabricator General secretly teleports the entire planet into a distant star system instead, taking orc technology and giving it a new name, Armageddon. The First War for Armageddon. In early M41, a warp storm rises above Armageddon without warning, and before the planet's commanders can fully understand what they are facing, half the planetary defense force has already turned traitor. A Space Hulk descends from the storm carrying Chaos Space Marines, demonic hosts, and at the head of all of them, Angren, Demon Primarch of Khorne, once master of the World Eaters, now a creature of pure, unstoppable fury walking a world that has no defense capable of slowing him down. He tears through the outer defenders and stops along the way to raise monuments of bone and skulls that sustain his demonic form in reality, and the survivors fall back with nowhere left to go until Logan Grimnar, newly appointed Chapter Master of the Space Wolves, holds the collapsing line and calls for the one force capable of standing in front of a demon Primarch without breaking. The Grey Knight's answer was 109 Terminator Assault Marines teleporting directly into the heart of Angren's host, and 96 of them died before a young recruit named Hyperion shattered Angren's Black Blade, and Brother Captain Aurelian banished the Demon Primarch back to the warp. The First War of Armageddon was really marked by the conflict between the Space Wolves and the Grey Knights, so it was erased from every record the Inquisition could reach. The Months of Shame. As Armageddon is finally declared safe, Logan Grimnar finds himself in orbit, observing inquisitorial stormtroopers, reassuring the survivors that the injections being given in the camps are just vaccinations. These needles are actually the first step in a systematic sterilization process, marking the beginning of a cold-blooded plan to ensure everyone who witnessed the war is worked to death within the walls of an inquisitorial compound. Grimnar had been promised these people would be protected. But every one of those assurances was a lie, and when the Grey Knight's fleet begins shooting down Imperial Guard transports attempting to flee the system, the Space Wolves move their own warships to block the line of fire. This act of defiance brings the Imperium closer to tearing itself apart from within. Inquisitor Lord Kisnaros gathers a full battle fleet with the entire Red Hunters chapter and sets course for Fenris, threatening orbital bombardment of the Space Wolves' homeworld unless the Old Wolf submits. Grimnar then returns with a fleet that outguns Kisnaros. The standoff costs the Grey Knights several starships, and the relationship between two of the most powerful warrior orders in the Imperium hardens into hatred. The Second War for Armageddon. What many know as the first great orc invasion of Armageddon began in the late 41st millennium. Warlord Gajkol Mag Uruk Thraka descended with a planetary-scale onslaught so massive it crushed the world's defenses in a matter of weeks. This was fueled by the incompetence of Overlord Hermann von Straub, a governor who ignored every warning and exiled his only dissenting officer, Commissar Sebastian Yarrick, to Hades' Hive and placing him directly in the path of the largest orc horde the system had ever seen. That exile didn't break Yarrick and even saved the planet when he turned Hades' Hive into a fortress held together by pure grit and a total refusal to surrender. Every strategy Gajkul threw at the city, Yarrick countered. The orc warlord was held to a grinding stalemate by one aging commissar who simply wouldn't yield. While Gajkul was distracted, Commander Dante and the Blood Angels arrived, smashing the exposed orc spearhead from behind. The invasion collapsed from the outside while Yarrick held their attention from within. In the chaos of the retreat, Yarrick fought the orcs personally. He lost his arm to a power claw, but he tore the weapon from the one who took it and eventually had it grafted to his own body. Gajkul escaped with a bolter shell in his skull, and his body was never recovered. The Third War for Armageddon. Gajkul opened the Third War by obliterating Hades' Hive from orbit. He spent 50 years reflecting on his past failures, and his first move was ensuring Yarrick couldn't use that fortress again, but he didn't know Yarrick had already evacuated it. This was the largest conflict Armageddon had ever seen. Gajkul returned with a full-scale war that dwarfed his first invasion, hitting a planet that spent 5 decades preparing for him. The Imperium built orbital stations and moved an entire naval command into the system. The Black Templars arrived under High Marshal Helbrecht, joining the returning Blood Angels. The war became a grinding nightmare across ash wastes and shattered cities. Millions died for meters of ground while neither side found a finishing blow. Deep underground, Chaos cultists even tried to summon the demon Primarch Angron back to the world. Then Gajkul had a vision. Gork and Mork called him to something greater, and he decided Armageddon was no longer his priority. He got bored and abandoned the planet mid-war, leaving millions of orcs behind with no leader. Yarrick and High Marshal Helbrecht were not satisfied with just a defensive win because, for them, the war would only be over when Gajkul was finally defeated. They then teamed up on the Black Templars' flagship, setting out to track the beast across the galaxy. The Season of Blood. When Cadia fell and the Great Rift tore the galaxy in two, Armageddon's endless war between humans and orcs was crashed by chaos. Warp storms swallowed the system the moment the Cicatrix Maledictum opened, trapping the remaining orcs and the Imperial defenders inside. Demons of Khorne and Tzeentch erupted across the ash wastes and ruined cities while mortals scrambled for cover. During the Noctis Aeterna, half the planet was reshaped into a demon world, with no way to call for help. When communication finally returned, so did the Conqueror at the head of a massive Khornate fleet. Angron, the demon Primarch, returned to Armageddon, bleeding into reality through the Red Angel's gate and began slaughtering everything in his path. Grey Knights, Space Wolves, and Black Templars stood together on the same ground. In the end, Grandmaster Morvans of the Grey Knights pushed Angron back through the gate with his own body, sealing the rift from the other side. The Red Angel was contained, but the fire hasn't gone out. Armageddon has been burning since the day the Emperor named Horus his War Master on its soil, and it isn't about to stop now. The Fourth War, Armageddon Rising. Now the latest chronicles from Adepticon 2026 confirm that Armageddon is entering its most terrifying phase yet with the launch of 11th edition. Sebastian Yarrick has returned, and apparently the rumors of his death were exaggerated. He now leads a desperate Imperial coalition in the Yarrick's Return campaign, though many whisper that this isn't the original man. Some believe he is a clone, or worse, a warp manifestation kept alive solely by the orcs' collective belief in their favorite enemy. While demons still haunt the ruins, a new threat has hit the surface. The Orc Vanguard, led by the legendary speed cultist Wazdaka Gutsmek, has turned the ash wastes into slaughterhouse. Speculation grows that Gajkul is attempting to revive the War of the Beast by uniting the most technologically advanced orc factions under one banner. To counter this lightning-fast tide, the Imperium has deployed new armored reinforcements, including the Centaur Rapid Strike and Hippogriff AFV. Alongside Yarrick stands Commissar Graves, a new hero reportedly holding the defense together at the end of a bolt pistol. As the Blood Angels and Black Templars return to the fray, the war has shifted from a stalemate into a high-octane race for survival. Lore theorists predict a final three-way showdown between Yarrick, Gajkul, and Angron, a battle that could turn Armageddon into a permanent nexus of war that can never be won. Thanks for watching until the end. Click here to check out another video and see you in the next one.